Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome back to Medina TV. So as you guys can probably see, it's just going to be me in this video because I'm going to be sharing a personal story. It's my convert story. And just a few things before we get into the video. So my wife and I post videos every week. If you're interested in inspirational Islamic content, couple challenges, lifestyle vlogs, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And also click the post notification. It's like a bell icon and it's going to notify you every time we post. In this video I'm going to talk about my transition from Christianity to Islam, and in no point in this video do I mean to disrespect any religious belief. And I love my family and I have no intention here to disrespect them as well. I'm just going to tell you guys my story and how I came to Islam. My process of coming to Islam was very gradual, and I'm going to take you guys through the different stages of my life because that's going to give you the full picture of how I came to Islam. So growing up, I came from a town outside of Toronto, Canada. It's a small town. Although there was some level of multiculturalism, most people were Christian and white, and so my family was Christian. My mother's Catholic and my father just identifies as Christian. I went to Catholic elementary school, Catholic high school, and Catholic church as well. And I always had a firm belief that God existed throughout my life. The thing is, when I didn't feel that strong connection when I went to church. So I would sometimes go to church, especially on Easter and Christmas time, but I wasn't someone who went to church every single Sunday. And I didn't feel that strong of a connection with God, and I didn't really understand a lot when I went to church. The same thing, even though I went to a Catholic elementary and high school, I didn't feel I really learned a whole lot about Christianity, even things learning how to understand the Bible, for example. I didn't really feel I learned very much. However, I still always maintained that strong faith in God. In terms of Islam, I didn't really actually have a whole lot of exposure to it growing up. The only things I was really told about Islam were ideas from my parents and from the media, and they're basically Muslims are terrorists, they're there to cause harm, you shouldn't associate with these kind of people. And so I didn't really pay too much mind to it at first because I wasn't really around Muslims. However, when I graduated from high school, things changed quite a bit. So I went to a university that was only 10 minutes away from my small town, and I noticed there were quite a few Muslims. And my family always cautioned me, don't get too close to these people. If you want to work together with them, that's fine, but don't get too close. And so that first year of university, I'd say, is the first time I started questioning my faith a bit as a Christian. And there was a period where I actually came across someone who was Christian online, and this was completely unintentional and completely random. And over time, I started chatting with them a little bit, and then they started telling me a little bit about their beliefs. And this made me feel good at first because I felt I had connected with someone who was Christian. The school I was at, there were a lot of Muslims and people I didn't feel as strong of a connection with in terms of religion. So it was kind of bringing me back to where I was before university. And so this person started actually telling me their beliefs about Christianity, and then they started telling me how to read the Bible. And at first I was a little bit skeptical, but over time they kept convincing me to start reading the Bible, but to read it in a literal way. So to take basically biblical verses and read them word for what they mean. And at that point I started getting more and more immersed into it and what they were telling me, and that's when things got a little bit weird. So I started reading literal Bible verses, and there would be verses saying the family will separate, the moon is going to turn blood red when the day of judgment comes. And I know it sounds crazy to hear that, but this person, I feel they actually use legitimate brainwashing techniques. And so I got a little bit off path for a bit. My family and friends were concerned about that. So my family actually contacted the chaplain from my high school, and chaplains basically are there to try to get people who are in spiritual crisis back on track. So he ended up chatting with me, and he basically taught me the importance of reading the Bible, not literally, but taking into account the historical context of what the verses mean. And from chatting with him, he pretty much got me back on track, realizing how extreme I was acting. And so that brought me back to just being regular and Christian again. So a few years went by and everything was going well, and then I ended up meeting with Mubina, and we actually have a story about how we met, but I'm just going to summarize the parts that are relevant to my story as, through my conversion to Islam. So we met through an online group, and at first I was like, okay, let's work together. And so we ended up taking a lot of courses together, and over time we started developing some level of a bond, and my family kind of took note that we were working together for quite a bit, and they started discouraging me from talking to her. She's like, you guys are talking together too much. Although it's about work, you should keep a distance. And so I kind of got pressured, and it got to a point where I cut off my relationship with Mubina completely for like a week or two, and we ended up reconnecting after that because we had worked together so much that I kind of like enjoyed talking to her. But obviously I knew like there was a distance between us, and she was Muslim, I was Christian. But as we continued to get to know each other, there would be times when Mubina would actually ask me questions about my faith in Christianity. She would ask me questions like, why do you guys keep a Christmas tree? Why do you guys believe in the Holy Trinity? And why do you eat pork? Those are just some examples. And I tried to give her explanation as to why we did those things, but I felt like my answers for her were not making sense. So she ended up actually contacting the chaplain that helped me earlier, and even his answers weren't really resonating with her at all. And there would be times when I would actually ask her questions about Islam just out of curiosity, but whatever she would tell me about it, I would kind of like shoo it away and just be like, no, it's okay, I don't want to learn too much about this. Because I knew that if I actually started liking anything about Islam, that my family would have a conflict with me. So I had to kind of like pretend, like just not take any interest in it. And so things started changing a lot around the time when we graduated. My family noticed how many years we were working together, and they started like making jokes, saying things like, oh, you guys are probably going to get married. We even got to a point where my mother and sisters took me in the kitchen, and they're like, listen, we know that, you guys have been talking quite a bit. Are you going to convert out of Christianity to be with this girl? Like, are you serious about being Christian? And I was kind of shocked by that conversation, but I was like, no, I assure you guys, I'm Christian, I'm firm in my belief, you have nothing to worry about. And I feel like that's kind of where the start of the misunderstandings happened with my family. And so we graduated school, and Mubina and I were in a bit of an awkward position because we didn't really have any reason to continue talking, and I understood Islamically that, as a Muslim, we could work together, like her and I could work together, but we couldn't really maintain any relationship outside of that. And seeing as we weren't working together, we had to kind of make some decisions, and I started taking it upon myself to start chatting with other people because I had moved out for graduate school at that time, and I started trying to meet new people, and I knew that like our relationship was kind of like in a difficult spot. And so long story short, I had to really reflect on our relationship and our direction, and after thinking about it for like a whole afternoon, I realized that I didn't want to continue without Mubina in my life. And so at that point I confessed to her that I think I had feelings for her, and I knew that she had feelings for me, but we both realized that we still had that religious barrier coming between us. And living at home, I never really gave Islam a chance because I knew about the conflicts that would happen, and Mubina took more of an effort to really understand Christianity. So I felt like it was only fair at this point, now that I'm free to learn about Islam, that I would actually give it a chance. And so I told Mubina, there's no way I'm going to convert for you. I don't even believe in Islam. There's a lot of questions I had and doubts that I had about Islam, but I told her, I'll give it a chance. Let me research it a little bit and learn more about it. And so I started researching, I started watching videos, I started asking her more questions about it. And the more and more I learned about Islam, the more I realized like, wow, I actually kind of like this. It makes a lot of sense. And for example, one of the first things I started learning about Islam and started implementing in my life was the halal food. And I knew that, to really understand Islam, I have to start like implementing some of the practices and teachings of Islam. And so I started actually learning about halal food, started learning about the ingredients. I actually went to the grocery store and started picking out some halal food. So there was a point where I was eating halal food and haram food at the same time. Eventually, though, I started gradually eating just halal food, and I actually even went and threw out all my haram food. I started learning about the prayers, and what I really liked about the prayers is that like it had a structure. So I started learning the movements of the prayers. I started praying at certain times, even at Fajr in the morning, and I was like, wow, this really must keep you guys on track, because I felt one struggle as a Christian was there was no structure with the way I pray, with the way I give charity. Like I felt like I wasn't really having as strong of a connection with God because I wasn't able to. Like I didn't really have any structure and ability to keep that strong relationship with God. And I felt like Islam was bringing me to that, and I just felt like amazed and kind of embarrassed, because I was there giving Mubina such a hard time and bashing her for like her beliefs in Islam for like 4 years. And then I finally realized, oh wow, like I was like, oh, like I was completely wrong about this the entire time. So I told her, I'm not ready to like convert or anything, but I want to continue learning about Islam. However, things kind of happened very quickly this one day. So it was Father's Day in like 2018, and I ended up going home to visit my family. And this is where I started feeling like I was in a bit of an identity crisis, and it happened very quickly. So I was still Christian, but I went to my family's home and they gave me snacks, and I read the ingredients and I knew they were haram, so I had to kind of like say, oh, thanks for the snacks, but like I had to kind of accept it but not show that I wasn't going to take it. And then they had steaks because it was a barbecue, and I was like trying to dodge it and be like, no, just give me the fish and some vegetables. I don't want the steak right now, right? So I was having to kind of hide what I was eating. And then when I was at their house, I'm like, you know what? I don't feel right doing this. I do not want to hide my identity. And so I quickly ran upstairs. I grabbed my box of memories, anything I could fit in there. I basically put everything in there because I knew that I wanted to convert at that moment. And I knew that my family was not going to support my decision since they really had a strong dislike for Islam. So I basically grabbed whatever I could carry, and I just told them, I'm going to take this to my new place. What happened was, on the drive home, I knew for sure, like, I want to convert, I want to say my Shahada now, because I'm not the type of person who's going to hide my identity, and I'm living alone, so I have an ability to do this now. And so I told Mubina as soon as I came home, look, I want to convert, I'm ready to do this now. And she was shocked. She's like, what? Wait a minute, aren't you still like trying to learn more about it? Like, you said you're not ready to do this now. And I told her, look, I went through some things today and I thought about it, and like, I'm ready to do this. And I'm not necessarily like the most spontaneous like that, but I just knew at that moment it was the right time. So I ended up taking the Shahada, and alhamdulillah, I became Muslim on Father's Day in 2018. So after converting, I felt like such a relief. I know like some converts, they get very emotional, and I did feel very emotional in ways, especially like when I was saying the Shahada and everything. But for me, it was more like a relief, because I felt my entire life as a Christian that like I didn't know how to be close to God, and I always wanted to. And I felt like, my journey, like things were finally coming together in a way where I was feeling at peace. And so for me, it was just like kind of like, thank God, like a relief type of moment for me. And I was very grateful for that. But after converting, I knew there were still some challenges ahead. So I just started a new position, as a master's student, and I just started a few months ago. And so I was a little bit concerned growing up with all these negative stereotypes of Islam. Like, what are my coworkers going to think about me converting? And then I was like, what are my friends going to think about me converting? And then I was like, oh no, what are my family going to think about me converting? And so I took things step by step. So first I told my coworkers, they were accepting of it. I was kind of surprised. I told my friends, they were accepting of it. I was, again, surprised, but like, I was like, the next challenge is telling my family, and I knew that was going to be really difficult. So I spent like the next month thinking about what's the best way to tell my family about me converting. At first I was thinking, well, I could tell them in person, but then I was like, what if it's hostile? What if they completely like what if it's like a big conflict? And so I thought again, and I was like, maybe I'll tell them on the phone. But then I was concerned that I wouldn't get my message across, and I'd be very emotional about it. So I'm like, maybe the best step would be to message them first about this, and then maybe we can transition to a phone call. So I put together a message, but when I did that, I thought to myself, I'm like, I want to pursue a relationship with Mubina, and I want to convert to Islam. I don't want to keep shocking my family, so why not put everything in one message and just get the big shock over with, and then we can hopefully move on. So in that message, I mentioned to them in summary that I converted to Islam and I want to pursue a relationship with Mubina. And I knew that they weren't going to take it well, and that's sure enough what happened. So my family were really disappointed and upset with my decision. And I knew that they weren't really going to be a state of reasoning why I was doing that, but I tried anyway to reason and explain why I made that decision. They weren't hearing it. They even thought that Mubina brainwashed me into converting to Islam. And so through that process of reasoning with them for the next few days, they actually showed up at Mubina's home and tried to question and interrogate her about why I converted to Islam. Alhamdulillah, and thankfully they actually didn't find her family. And there were a few concerns I actually had with that, because for one, her family were feeling really distressed and scared because my family were trying to find them. And two, I was trying to leave a good impression, because I knew I was going to work towards a proposal with her family, and I didn't want them to think like I converted just for her, or I was doing this for the wrong reasons, and just to give off a bad first impression. And so thankfully things worked out and started cooling down. I was still in touch with my parents and trying to explain to them why I converted, but they still weren't happy with it. And then what happened was I was trying to get to know Mubina's family in this process, and it was very difficult for me because I was coming to a new religion. I was trying to understand their culture and respect their culture as well, and I didn't have my family support there, so it was just me entering a whole new family and getting to know them. So that was pretty challenging for me. And eventually, after gaining their approval to marry Mubina, we ended up getting married, alhamdulillah. The marriage for me was bittersweet because the night before getting married, I even received some kind of disturbing and hateful messages from my family about my decision to get married and to be with Mubina. And so that was on my mind a lot during the day we got married. Also, I didn't have anyone on my side attend our wedding because it was just a lot to go through, and I just wanted to be married, and I didn't want the stress of managing so much all at once. It was already very overwhelming. So long story short, Mubina and I got married, and ever since then I'm still trying to repair my relationship with my family, and it's been pretty difficult because 2 years later, where we are now, they're still under the impression that Mubina brainwashed me into this, and that I didn't have genuine intentions with converting to Islam. And so I'm still in the process of trying to reach out to them, but some of their messages have just gotten so disturbing that it's just been hard to keep in touch with them. So I would ultimately say to my family, guys, I love you, I care about you. I'll be honest with you, I never researched Islam before coming and living where I am now. It's something that happened after I moved out, and something that happened very naturally. I did all the research myself for Islam. I only asked Mubina questions about it. I really don't have anything to lose, and I've been honest from the start. I understand why you guys would have the impression that you do, but I hope that someday, we can talk about it and, resolve these misunderstandings, because the things that you think about what happened with my conversion and with our relationship are not what actually happened. So I'm hoping that this video does clarify some of those misunderstandings, and also can inspire other people to see what it's like for a revert to come to Islam. I really greatly appreciate you guys hearing out my story. If you guys like this video, please click the subscribe button, comment your thoughts, let me know what you think of this story. We post videos every single Sunday, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, so take care, and look forward to chatting with you guys again soon. Assalamu alaikum.